Molly was walking down the rainforest path. The ground was soft and black beneath her soles. She was neither cold nor warm in her striped dress. The climate was absolutely excellent. She had a canvas mailbag on her shoulder, resting comfortably at her hip, and was walking like someone who knew how to carry the weight of other people's treasures. Why was she even doing this? Meyer Stallion didn't own or control her. She could take off the prison uniform and be exactly the same girl as she had arrived as, which was a witch, meandering through life, unsure of her life's purpose and where she should run to next. She had always been running, for if she slowed down for even a second, she would realize she was a fraud in her own skin. She wasn't intuitive enough, or feminine enough, or brave enough to be the high priestess. She wasn't mysterious enough, deep enough, ancient enough. There was no way a goddess lived inside her soul and controlled the whole damn ancient arcana, right? There were too many things in her life that had led up to this moment, synchronicities that kept telling her that this was, in fact, the case. And then there was the magician, Artemis Wingshadow. He was number one in the arcana. She still hadn't given him his letter. Who knew what it said? But she had to give it to him eventually, or it was just going to rot in her mailbag. But she was sure he wouldn't let that happen. As many times as she dusted him, at one point would she allow herself to be loved? What if she stopped to take a breath and let him worship her? This time was different, because this time her memory hadn't been cached. She shivered. She would like to feel like a fraud all the same, for she could not love a man who, unless she loved herself first. A rose grown for occasion. If a random mermaid in a bathtub told her she could do this, surely she could. She could. She was the only one in her own way now. She heard the soft howling of wolves in the distance as she was building up the courage it would take to wander the dark woods and deliver mail to all the arcana she may or may not find. That she would find. That she indeed might not be good enough, but that she could try until she was. She was good enough. Yes. She was blinded suddenly by a wolf and tackled to the ground. Molly was not stupid enough to fight back, for the wolf was taller, leaner, meaner, and all around more powerful than she. Molly knew exactly what he was there for. Her high priestess intuition would have come in great handy then, but of course she was still in denial and unable to accept, not access her higher wisdom. She was a witch in the woods and had to be prepared for wolves. She supposed this was a good first lesson, albeit a messy one, as a novice ruler of the arcana. The wolf drooled and held her down until the rest of the pack brothers came one by one. One chestnut, one deep ebony, a red, a white, and the one who'd caught her, a gray. They were all quite beautiful in their own right, and just a pinch of their wolf hair would fetch a pretty price at market. Molly was always thinking like this, like a merchant, trader, entrepreneur, for she loved bartering the best, and she hung out with a lot of strange and scary creatures. The white wolf transformed into his human form. He was not in a decent position as a man completely naked, but being a wolf he felt home in one form as much as the other. Molly respected it. It reminded her of standing in front of a blazing hot ritual fire, as much a witch as any other creature in the woods. But this was not a ritual, and there was no fire, just a very naked he-wolf before her. "Melandra," he breathed, just taking her in with his eyes, her beautiful energy radiating off onto her in waves. Fear, lust, mistrust, longing, envy, purpose. He looked at her mailbag that had been discarded when she had been tackled. "We've caught you to take you to the lunatictuary for the bounty," he replied, chuckling. "Why do I get the feeling that it wouldn't benefit me at all?" he asked, looking at her, the history between them shimmering in the air. "I've just come from there, I guess. I quit my last post job and have been given a promotion. If I lose, I die. If I win, I become—" "What?" asked the white wolf. "The High Priestess," Molly said. She didn't know how many challenges she would have to undergo, the nightmares or the bliss. All she knew was that every one of the memories were worth making, were hers for the taking. She stood up. The gray wolf didn't stop her. She picked up her mailbag, and still the wolves stared, for the weight of the epitome of it clicked, the responsibility she would have to carry when she took charge of the extraordinary arcana, all 22 archetypes, including herself. Extraordinary. Molly walked down the road. Her feet were softly massaged through her soles, and behind her padded 5 wolves. And how odd to see a witch walking in the wood with 5 wolves behind her. How much more powerful she felt in a world where she didn't have to fight her way. She found the wolves would rather walk with her than fight tooth and nail against her. Perhaps they understood her goal and wanted to be a part of it as much as she did. They wanted a taste of divinity, to risk the take on the impossible tasks. The fog began to roll in as the sun began to set. Molly wanted to set up camp, but it seemed rather irrational to set up a camp because whatever came out at night would see her. At least, if she was awake and had her wits about her, she would be able to fight them off. So she did what any rational witch would do. She drew a salt circle around her, lit some candles, and cast a spell. The wolves had teeth and claws, and Molly had magic. But what spell to cast to take care of her through the whole night? The fog seemed to pass over Molly's body as the candlelight from the circle faded. The white wolf looked at her solemnly as she stood up, more mist pouring around her. She had made herself ethereal. Threats would pass through her like water over stone. She had found that fighting was swell when it was the thing you had to do, but she had discovered that there were plenty of choices in life, and so few of them needed to end in violence. Perhaps none of them did. Only solid objects could harm solid objects, and so the 5 wolves could follow the ghost witch through the forest during the darkest night. But first they would rest. Later, Molly and the wolves were walking through the forest. They rested 2 hours. Molly didn't realize that when she'd done her magic before, she had entered a brainwave state called the theta, where spirits could talk to you, and had allowed a brief communication between her and the High Priestess. Enough of a connection to establish a door, a mahogany door, in a white lighthouse by the sea. A door to communicate through meditation. and through dreams. Going to just hide from every battle, are you? Whispered the previous high spirit of the high priestess in Molly's ear. She was a fading, ghostly presence in Molly's mind, annoying her at the moment. I'm saving my energy, Molly whispered back to her. Surely the old priestess knew what terrible fates awaited her, having to contact each and every Arcana member and give them their letters. If she only had a broom, it would make the whole task easier. Molly's vision sharpened as she noticed lights up ahead on the misty road. As Molly approached it, the wolves flanked her. She could hardly believe all the spirits wandering past her like a parade. Giant, monstrous-looking ones that floated like nothing, so gentle and graceful, pale and blue. Also small orange salamander spirits, buzzing to and fro through the lanes of incorporeal tourists. Molly thought that only the wolves looked out of place, the only corporeal beings among them, but it was hard not to see a wolf move as lithe as a spirit, and none of those who could pass through space and time seemed to mind them. The wolves in turn seemed neither perturbed or upset. Molly wondered if they could see the spirits at all. Have you heard about the new high priestess? Asked one of the spirits. Molly almost crashed into the spirit ahead of her. She strained her ears to listen. No, do tell. This came from an elderly-looking lady spirit, clad in colorful rags that blew in the ghostly breeze. I heard from the Lunatictuary Network that there is a new high priestess for the Arcana. They're keeping news about her very hush-hush. But don't you think that's just lovely? A new feminine divine energy around here is just what Incarnate needs. Well, if she manages to survive the trials, said the first ghost, a rather pale fellow who looked as ill dead as he must have at the very last moment of his life. Of course she will. She's the one, retorted the colorful lady. Molly was disturbed and continued on in haste. Suddenly it seemed as if everyone was whispering about her. Why, look at that post-spirit. Doesn't she look odd? Indeed, I heard the new high priestess is a nine-tailed fox. Oh no, I heard she is a lovely genie. I heard she was a mermaid. She can't be a mermaid. The chariot is a mermaid. I heard she's a witch. Molly truly did stumble then. Meyer Stallion was the chariot? Well, of course, that just made sense. She'd even said that to her, and she'd forgotten. But of course, every single surrounding spirit could see her now, that her emotions were compromising her powers. Molly's clothes shimmered as the energy in the vicinity peaked. Her prison stripes dissolved into her silken robe, irrefutable proof it seemed. She kept on her black pointy hat, and somehow that was most comical to Molly, despite the fact she was quite mortified at being completely nude beneath the silks and revealed before to all these magical creatures. Because her spell had made her incorporeal, and so were they were able to take hold of her. Molly didn't think about that. Grab the goddess, they said. Molly very much wanted to protest that she was not a goddess, but they put a ghostly rag in her mouth and carried her off. Molly had been in this exact situation lots of times. She just remembered to control her breathing and remembered that no one could take anything from her without her permission. She was divinely protected. Molly could feel the high priestess spirit inside her, calming her, empowering her. Molly was taken down into the catacombs of the small town where there was a small crowd of humans with red robes and ritual knives before an altar with a red tablecloth. The spirits laid Molly down and held her there as the priests brought their knives down to sacrifice her. But the knives passed harmlessly through her body. Molly could feel her spell weakening with each cut, however, and realized to her horror that very soon they would be able to cut away at her enchantment with their ritual blades. The final cut came down that would break her spell, and a brilliant light escaped from the incision. Each of the humans covered their eyes and cried out in pain. Molly seemed to be coming apart with light. "How dare you attempt to desecrate the High Priestess?" Molly could feel her lips move and hear her voice speak, but she hardly felt in control of her actions. "For your atrocity you shall be punished." The men screamed as their skin flaked apart from their very bodies, screaming and writhing on the floor until they were mere skeletons. The shades and spirits that had stuck around to witness shepherded the new spirits with them and made a hasty escape. Molly's eyes turned to a shade that had not escaped with the others, who was desperate and shivering in the corner. Molly blinked, and the bright light from her eyes, ears, and nose and mouth, and every pore and entrance to her body blazed brilliantly. When she opened her eyes again, she saw only steam where the shade had been, and a burn mark. Molly fell to her knees, exhausted. It was then that the wolves patted down and helped her upon the back of the white wolf. Molly clung tightly to his pelt as he padded through the forest. The sunrise lit up Molly's gray irises, and she allowed herself a moment's rest.